I'm very excited about today,
Yes.
but I'm hoping that I don't have to say very much
Oh no.
because as I was saying to Jill, I'm pretty speechless, which is surprising for me.
Oh,
But
Going to be a short session then.
no, I
If
don't
it's
think
down to
so.
us.
I'm very curious about what's been going on in your heads and your thoughts since since you opened up this rabbit hole, Carol. Okay, so
Yeah,
let's
I blame Carol for it
yeah,
all.
okay.
I
Yeah.
I am
That did occur to me that we were all like going head first into this sacred geometry thing.
well, not
Oh,
only that, just wait. And I'll just preface this with saying that what I put together for the slideshow, I will run it as a movie first. Uh, but I don't expect us to get through it at all like a slideshow, and we may not even get to it. But this just opens up so many avenues to explore, which I am completely willing to explore. But
Passionate about, I would say.
what's that? What?
Passionate about.
Oh, yes. Um, and the books that I'm presenting are only a portion of the books I have on my own bookshelves.
Oh,
Um,
I see.
but I want to follow your interests and not just keep dumping my rabbit hole on you. Okay. So that's why I'm going to be as quiet as I can today and listen to your feedback. Okay. So, do you have things to share with what you did this week to begin with?
Of course, I do.
Okay.
Well,
So
I didn't do
let's see.
really much.
All right. Doesn't matter. This is a crazy time of year. So if you did anything, it's quite astounding. Of course,
Yeah.
I haven't done anything for Christmas yet because I've been just lost down the rabbit hole. But but that's okay because
Good,
I'm not
good.
entertaining either.
That's the right attitude, I would say.
I think so. At least to be ending the year after the way my year started, I think that I'm in a perfect place, a perfect time. And I thank the three of you for that. Among others who have been incredibly supportive throughout this year. Um, Suzanne, can we
Yes,
start with you?
let's start with me because it will be very quick, I think. Well, I would only start. I wanted just to try it out once, and I made some ancient fertility goddess, I would say.
Okay.
Wow.
How?
Oh, no, it's not really much, but
well,
last
hold
week
it, hold
wait
it
a
up
minute, put
again.
it back up there.
I
That's
didn't see.
incredible. It's very rough and
Oh
wow.
yeah.
I thought it
Beautiful.
Yes.
looks like a goddess,
Yes.
fertility goddess. I saw very fat women like that with
Suzanne,
it it
wonderful.
reminded me of them. And otherwise, I didn't touch the subject. I didn't even watch Carol's video. I didn't have time, and I want to watch it when I have really time to watch it. But I bought a book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Gold.
The
Golden
Golden
Infinity?
Ratio, the Divine Beauty of Mathematics
Ooh.
Golden,
by the
wonderful,
founder
wonderful.
by the founder of Golden Number Net and Phi Matrix. The name is Gary B. Meissner. He must be an American or English. I don't know.
So could you post that title
Yes, of course.
on the
Yes, yes,
floor,
yes.
please? Thank you.
I liked it. Oh,
Wonderful.
your cat is here.
Yes.
Well,
Well, that
that's all for me now. Yes, I have to make inky cats now for my granddaughter. That's the card we got last year. You see, the standards are
Oh,
pretty
wow.
high.
Oh, nice. Well, that fertility goddess is wonderful.
I don't know. Yes, it was just a first start. Yes.
A big step, a leap step.
Yeah.
Carol?
Well, I was like so immersed in art this week that I mean I would just like what I say is like going away with the fairies. So it was just like woo gone. I did take time to make some Christmas cards, which were really fun. They're collages, but where are they? I will just show you them really quickly. Actually, I'll just show you two of them because they're sort of indicative of one another. So I did one with stars. So I just painted a piece of paper and then I cut things out and then I rearranged
Yes.
like a collage here.
Yeah,
And this was more my original idea was this.
nice.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I made 4, took me forever. And I'm like, really? I think that's enough. And then the sacred geometry thing, I did post a picture of it in the forum just before we met. I don't know if I can get this to be
Oh, wow.
Okay, wow.
hide behind it. Does that help?
Well, yes and no. So that is the direction of it?
Oh, it could be any direction.
Okay. Yeah.
This way
Wow.
it looks like a go-kart or something.
A chariot, a
Or,
chariot.
yeah, as a chariot or a baby pram or
It also looks not punk, or what is it? What is it with all the gears and things? The
Oh, yes, I see what you mean. I
the
don't know
it was
the-
just
the name.
so one part it did so much for me and like just thinking about like as I was doing it having ideas just were like flowing but like this part where there's a mandala
yeah,
embedded in it
yeah,
and so I really got into that idea of like showing it and then hiding it and how you can make things appear like they're in layers.
yes. You have
Mhm.
2 mandalas there, sort of.
Yeah. So it was really fun. I didn't I stopped here. I'm like, okay, that's enough for this one. Because
Good.
because it was just, I just didn't know if I added anything more, I was gonna like go too far with it. So I just stopped. And I sort of wished that wasn't there, but it was one of the first lines that I put ink on. So I think it was fun. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Are you documenting these along the way?
I didn't this one because we had done so much. However, you will find on the forum, I just posted, I'm working on, remember when you said to do one that I documented along the way?
Mhm.
And I decided to do this really sort of crazy thing where I combined the 2 grids.
Okay.
So they were both grids. There was the geometry grid and then there was and I used the points, different points on of course it all matched because it was geometry.
Right.
I could just make the grid. So I have there's a post of this.
Okay.
Of course, it's not really, it doesn't look like it's even remotely. I can't get it to focus.
That's right. I'll pull it off of
Yes.
off of the forum.
so you can see where I've penciled in like what I think I'm gonna do with the rest of them.
Uh-huh.
But this design in the center was so complicated, like in this row. That was so complicated. I've never had such a hard time replicating a design. It
Ah.
took me so much time to make them the same.
It's incredible.
Yes, it is. Okay, now in talking about that, while doing this, especially this one where that was so challenging, did you have any reflection on why that's important or why it may not be important to have it the same?
Yeah, I seesawed back and forth between it. Like, um, well, the person in me that wanted it to be all nice and tidy was like, what are you having so much trouble with this for? You know, how come this is so hard? And and I could easily see why it was hard because the whole thing is only like 4 inches across.
Oh, God.
So if it had been bigger, I think I wouldn't have struggled so much with it, but it's really small. I think the whole page is 7 by 7. The paper is 7 by 7. So
Oh, my.
that small part of it. So yeah, the detail queen was added, and you know, she doesn't accept many imperfections, but at a certain point I was just like, okay, so I mean that's why part of it is inked and it's not done because I couldn't even see it with the pencil. The design was, you know, it gets so mushy with pencil, at least for me. So
Yeah.
I went ahead and inked what I could of the design. And but yeah, I don't, it's funny because I could see in the geometric one that there's way, you know, that there are some other options of like disappearing parts of it and appearing parts of it. And so I'll probably explore that, but not on this one.
As your detail artist inside, how does she feel about going in that direction?
You know, when I saw it happening, I mean, I just had that idea while I was doing the other one, and I went, oh, well, let's see if I can figure that out. So, you know, I think it'll be fun to just,
Good.
you know, sort of go somewhere where it's not so absolutely perfect, and but I love the perfect and beautiful. That's just
Well, I think it's really important that you embrace both.
yeah,
You don't have to have one over the other.
yeah.
And
Well, one of these days I'm just going to bust out of all of this and go back to doing abstract paintings that have no particular meaning to anybody but me, which I have many. I mean, that's all I used to do.
interesting.
But if you saw some of my clay work, you would understand perfectly how come how I get into this, because my the C forms that I did were, some of them were incredibly detailed. Like they would take me weeks and weeks of making a pattern on something.
Well, I can't wait to see the.
I'll see if I can pull. I could get one now. I don't want to take up too much time though.
Why don't you photograph it and have it ready for us the
Okay.
next time? Okay, because we're going to be floating around this issue for a while, I think.
Okay, that's great.
Good. Jill, I know that I'm going to be presenting some of your week's activity in the slideshow. Comments about your experience in making these?
Well, yes, I've loved it. I think because my printed collages were sort of coming to an end, I was quite pleased to be given some other place to get hooked. Um, and so I have done quite a few. But at first I was trying to be symmetrical, and it drove me mad that I couldn't, that it was slightly off, and that I couldn't cope with that. So I did a couple symmetrical ones, and then all the rest were asymmetrical, because then it didn't matter really, did it? But I find the whole thing really fascinating. For a start, it's really nice again to have something that can just be there on the table and just pick up a pen and a pencil and a compass, have something just to dip into for 5 or 10 minutes in between rushing around and wrapping presents and things. So I enjoyed that, but I actually found it fascinating, the design aspect of it, because I think they're really, they're lessons in design, aren't for me anyway. And Chris and I did talk the other night, and I said, I can't understand why. I actually find it easier to see the design and find it easier to make decisions on these than I would in a painting. Because really, as Chris said, they're the same thing, you know. So yeah, I think I'm on my 7th at the moment.
Wow.
I know. And in one of them, this one, which I will say this, Chris, and I don't know whether I'm going to be repeating this, but in that one,
Wow.
I felt that I was making shapes that suddenly reminded me of First Nation work, Haida Native American work that I'd seen when I was lucky enough to visit Canada and North America, the north of the US and Alaska and things. So I got the book out and spoke with Chris about it and started taking photos. And I think we're probably going to see some of those.
Yes.
And it started a whole train of thought about where designs and patterns and things come from, really. So, but I don't know whether you want me to hold any more up or whether you've got them all.
Well,
If you
I
want-
think that I have them all in, and I just want to also make a connection between that and between Suzanne's fertility goddess, or
Yeah,
because all right, so if there's any link,
maybe there's a bit of
Yeah.
a link there. Is there a fertility? That's the one that I had to stop doing because as I got to the bottom, it was so out of symmetry. It was driving me mad. But I think there's a fertility goddess in there somewhere.
I would say so.
yes,
I think, it's all those circles, isn't it?
and there's
less primitive than mine.
hold that up again, please, Jill.
Oh, it was
Because-
the very first one I did. I think I did it the next day.
Okay, take notice of how insect-like it also looks. Also look
No.
at how alien it sort of looks.
Yeah.
And I want you to keep these things in mind uh, when I show you the slideshow.
But
Because
the next one I did, the only other symmetrical one I did. But how insect-like is that?
yes, and also, well,
It just is an
think of the
insect.
drones flying over my.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these things are all patterns and shapes that repeat through nature. This is what
Yeah.
fractals and sacred geometry is all about, and then how humans have adapted design, created design,
Mm.
informed by these things, whether we're conscious of it or not. That things feel right to us. I think last time I mentioned how when we're working, when we're trying to figure out compositions in paintings and why we respond to some, whether they're abstract or representational, doesn't matter. But it's almost like a safe, when all the
Oh,
cylinders
when it
click,
clicks. Yeah.
and then it opens. So that's how it feels to me when I'm looking at a painting. And it's not up here. I mean, I could use my brain to ask questions of why it's not working. But if it is working, it's as if all the cylinders have lined up and it clicks. And I think that that, at least for me, goes back to the whole sort of mystery of the symmetry in the universe, the sacred geometry, the fractals, the way that these simple mathematical the geometry of it can apply to just about everything. Almost everything can be dissected back to it, which is also interesting. And I just now thought of this, but how computers still baffles my brain that all of it is really just zeros and ones. It's all machine language,
I know.
which is a circle and a line. And all those millions of colors and shapes are all coded simply by arrangements of zeros and ones. So why not think if we have 5 basic shapes or something? What kind of an infinity do we have there? We've added 3 elements to machine language. So, okay. We ready for the slideshow?
I just have one other comment about the what you're saying, Jill, about looking and seeing like Native American things, and I ran into that with my doing doing the neurographic, stuff,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have several that I looked at and went, wow. I had one that sort of came out, looked like a bird, and but it was just in the design, in the way that I had made the shapes inside of the form. And that triggered for me, although I didn't follow up and look for it. I asked somebody else and they immediately got it without me saying what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that has been in the back of my mind since that happened a couple months ago,
Yeah.
because I see it too.
Originally, the slideshow was going to be entirely about designs created by indigenous people throughout the world, because definitely the neuro art brought to my mind the Inuits and the Southwest, the art from the Southwest. And so some of that is portrayed in the book that we're going to look at that Jill sent me the slides from. But I have tons of photos of masks and things from all around the world that are that same neuro art patterning that just feels like it meshes well with our systems somehow. And if we look inside of us, it's cells and veins, and that's a whole other thing from another book that I'm presenting, where if we look inside of our bodies, it's filled with neuro art. The rounded edges. Okay, so here, any more comments before we go to the movie? Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Did you make this one, Chris?
No. This is from the book that
Ah,
Jill.
That's the book.
You could have.
yes.
Any of us could
It
have.
is watercolor, and it was made in 1890.
Ah,
Wow.
This
It
is
was the
the book.
exhibition in Vancouver Art Gallery in
and
2006.
oh,
Wow.
I love the hats. I just adore
Oh,
them.
yes.
That's amazing.
And that's a pendant, a silver pendant. Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm,
Gosh, Jill, these are amazing.
Thank
so
you.
different.
Yeah, they're all very different, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess that's upside down, isn't it?
No, no, that
Oh.
one wasn't. No.
Okay, now we're on to some, yeah, a lot of this will be good for you to refer back to, their
Mhm.
definitions and things.
Mm.
It's a great picture.
Mm.
And this part you can refer back to and just see what some people think the symbolism of these can be.
Wow.
And these are some of the books from my bookshelf.
Wow.
Ah. Hilma af Klint.
Yes, that just arrived this morning. That was a Christmas present from a friend.
Oh, I have that too by Molly Bank.
It's a great book.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I have an anti-culturacy too.
That's a photograph.
Ah.
That's a photograph?
Yes, these are all photographs.
No way.
Yes. Taken from helicopters. I think it's helicopter.
Oh, the German. Hmm.
Well, you're making me think about books that I have.
These are also all photographs.
Mhm.
Look at that one. Oh, I love it.
Wow.
Hmm.
I thought those were like some kind of Christmas cookies. Wow.
Yep.
Oh, beautiful.
That's gorgeous too.
Mm. Mm.
This is my favorite. When I go anywhere and I'm in a plane, I'm always looking for patterns on the earth. Always. And actually, a lot of my paintings that are abstract usually remind me of that in some way.
Well, this is the conversation I want to open.
Wow, those are amazing.
I don't know why that one's popped at the end, but maybe. Huh. Okay.
Wow.
I see. This is back to the slideshow. What are your thoughts?
I think it like permeates everything. It is everything. And when I look at that, it just reminds me of so many photos I've taken of, I love taking photos where they're close, and usually it's like a close up of something that when you look at it after, or somebody doesn't know the context, they really don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's been a fascination for mine for many, many, many years. And it's, they're always nature. Like ice, really, that really thin ice that happens where
Yes.
there's like tremendous amounts of patterns. I have some fabulous photographs of that, and it's making me think of going back and finding the patterns in them.
Yeah. Like hoarfrost.
Yes.
Hoarfrost. Do you know what hoarfrost is?
No.
Yeah. Okay, hoarfrost, and I might have this wrong, but hoarfrost is a frost. I can't remember why it occurs, but a certain temperature where you actually see, you can see the crystal patterns. You know, how is that right? I think with hoarfrost, where you can see the individual unique formations of ice crystals.
Mm-hmm. I think
Mhm.
Is that right, Carol?
I think so.
Yeah. In my
I
mind,
will look
that's
it
what
up.
it is. I haven't
Mhm.
seen it that often.
It's HOAR, I think, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. And there was one time in my life where the snowflakes were coming down and they were really big, and the light was hitting it in such a way that I could see the unique crystal patterns in them. And it just blew my mind because, I mean, I've grown up with snow, but I never saw them that way, as if I were looking through a microscope, but it was just the right temperature at the right time with the right lighting. And it was amazing. Oops, you're muted, Jill.
That's because of Hockney. When I was a child, I lived in the east of England, which is colder because the winds come from the northeast as opposed to the west where I'm at the moment, which is wetter. But anyway, and we didn't have central heating, of course, or anything like that. And we used to get frost on the inside of the windows and the most amazing patterns.
Yes, that's happened to me.
That's the patterns that come to mind, as well as the crystals, which is the hoarfrost. But yeah. I can remember trying to draw them. I didn't make a very good job of it, but I wanted to capture them because they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
so beautiful, you know?
And
Mhm.
we respond emotionally to these patterns.
Mm, mm.
I also wanted to share with you, this is probably, I know I've mentioned street smart geometry, making these polyhedra on the streets and giving them to kids. So this is one example. It's a cube. It's made from, I think, 6 different pieces of paper, but
Wow.
they're circles that are cut in a way that put together make a cube with these little
Oh, wow.
triangular points. And
That's
then you have
amazing.
so they're all illustrated and then folded
Uh-huh.
up together. This one was done in an Asian grocery store.
Wow, beautiful.
Um, and these little things.
Ah,
This one too, these are circles that were then the triangle was made within the circle and it has those flaps. So they're all, even if they're flat triangular shapes, they began as a circle.
Just I can't even, my mind is just like, what? How do you do that? But don't tell me how to do it right now because I'll be off on that tangent.
Yeah, well,
My house will fill up with them.
my brain just loves to solve these problems of how does it go together. And even as far back as I can remember, this is what I saw when I looked up at trees. You know, that one photograph I showed of the tree going up? I would see that, and then I would see that same pattern in something else. And it just struck me as, wow, I've seen that pattern before, but it was in a tree, not in a rock. And um, and so when it came to math and I'd see something like this, I I knew it fit together somehow, and I knew that somehow it was the same as something else that didn't look at all like this. Anyway, so that's the monster you've let loose, Carol.
So you figured out how to do those things
Oh,
to
oh no.
make them?
No, 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 no. I mean,
It's like,
I started making some basic. I mean, I always knew how to do these, and somehow I did figure out how to do these, but then I wanted to do these. So, no, in fact, I have this book.
Making geometry.
oh,
I have several books like this because when I ran the
wow.
elementary school story time, I would also do projects with the kids, and I would go into my kids' classrooms uh, and teach them how to do these things. So it was way back, I was kind of doing street smart geometry because I wanted kids to know that math is really fun and that math is related to music and dance and science and art, So that was important to me because that was what got squelched in me, not by my parents, but by the school systems. And I didn't want one child that I came in contact with to not have a seed planted in them that connected math, science, art, and creativity. So that is still really, really important to me. So I'm grateful that you've brought me back into this crazy world where I don't care. I'm a crone now. I don't care if I dress weirdly. I don't care if people think I'm eccentric and the weird math woman. I don't care anymore because I think it's really important. And it's part of how our brains think, and our whole body, if we dissect our body, it turns out to be made up of patterns of sacred geometry. There's nothing in existence that doesn't boil down to fractals and sacred geometry. So how can we not love math? Okay, so the next question is, how does all this apply uniquely to each one of our artistic sensibilities or desires? You know, like what, if we have in mind something, the kind of art we'd like to create, does this fit in any way? Is that, you know, the tight versus loose? How does this relate? Does it relate to looseness also? I mean, for me, this, okay, I'm going to share my screen one more time. Not that one. Okay, well, you know, things like this, but mostly like this one. When I see that, I mean, that, if you dissect it, zoom in on it, zoom out of it, it also fits beautifully into fractals and sacred geometry. And for me, it's also just delightfully like an abstract painting. Loose, you know, within the constraints of geometry, it is delightfully loose and playful. And one other thing, I'm going to go back to this slide. Okay, I think that this slide visually explains the idea of the fractal. The fractal is something that whether you zoom in, keep zooming in, zoomed in, zoom in, zoom into the tiniest portion of it and enlarge it, that portion, which is this little point, tiny point down there, if you blow that up and look at it, it's basically the same, not exactly the same, but it follows the same kind of pattern that if you zoom way out. So if you're flying in an airplane and you look out and you see those patterns, if you zoom in, you're going to see those same patterns. So that's the idea of the fractal and the Mandelbrot. Have you heard of the Mandelbrot fractal?
I have heard that, but I don't really, I don't know what it is.
Okay, well, I'll show that another time, but it's where they were zooming in on a molecular level and there was a shape, and the more that they zoomed in, they saw the exact shape again, and then exact shape again, similar to this in a way. But this was one that I thought do you understand that?
Yeah.
That zooming in gives you the same pattern. Just like this could be a mountain, you know, mountainside, and if you zoom in, the crags, the rocks, they have that same pattern too.
So that says that a fractal is a type of mathematical shape.
Yes.
Specifically, or any shape.
Well, it is a mathematical shape because it's a shape that repeats itself no matter whether you zoom in or zoom out.
Okay.
Okay, so it is mathematical in a way that if you were to plot this, you could create, and there are software systems that create fractal designs. that if you take this shape and you multiply it out, you could just multiply it out infinite number of times.
And it would still be the same basic shape.
Yes, yes. And what they had done is that the better that microscopes became where they could zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in on things, they saw that in cells that the pattern, they would zoom in and it would look like something furry on the outside. It was kind of a roundish thing. I didn't have time to put it in here. That's part of another session. That they saw the same thing. Exactly. You know, maybe a little blip different because you can see some of these are, you have two things here, you have two things here, you have 1 point there, you have 1 point there, you know, it all, and then two smaller ones, that's about to do the two smaller ones there, and then it's going up again. So here's this shape that is echoed here, and then this is ready to go up and do the same thing. But down here, this tiny little point is doing the same thing as it does right here. See, with the two things on either side, two things on either side
Mhm.
and going up. And if you zoomed in on it more, it would look even more perfect. So that could be created mathematically. Does that answer your question?
So how does that relate to asymmetrical sacred geometry patterns?
Okay, well, it doesn't. See, that's my variation of,
So there's two. So if you go back to my slide for want of that, we just happen to have them there.
uh-huh.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, well, also for
That you
geometry,
still, that is what you're terming sacred geometry, yeah? Because I followed the rules of a
Right.
circle and a line, and then taking the diameter of any other circles from something that was already there. I followed those, yeah? And I joined points with straight lines because I thought that was part of the rules of the game.
yes, but those were my rules. That this is not truly sacred geometry,
Right.
but it's um
That's fine.
it was the starting point. It was a starting point. What I was looking for when I started doing these things was harmony and rhythm.
But I
And
think there's harmony and rhythm in that.
there is harmony and rhythm in this.
And that's what I mean when I said that I feel they're, for me, doing these, they're an exercise in design.
Yes. And if you're looking for strong design, then you can look to sacred geometry to start with, but expanding beyond that to, it's kind of a shortcut. Real sacred geometry is a repeating of the patterns, similar to all fractals are part of sacred geometry, but not all sacred geometry is fractals. And this is not true sacred geometry,
Right.
but it's, I think of it that way because it still is tying everything together. Everything is related to everything else in size,
Mm-hmm.
in repeating patterns. You know, you have different, look, you have a large one of these. This is a very similar shape as that, but it's a different shape. This is a tinier shape, same thing here. If you follow along in a circle, you're going to repeat almost like fractals. This is almost the same as this, is almost the same as that. So
So
in my
that's
mind,
satisfying to the eye,
yes.
that
And
repetition. Mm.
yes, and that's why I think Art Nouveau works
Mm.
and a lot of design works because it is that repeating of patterns that, for me, if I start with something as true as mathematics, if I just stayed with pure symmetry or pure sacred geometry would be fascinating, but I would end up being a bit bored by it, and I would feel like I wasn't creating anything. I'm just repeating a pattern to be extended, unless I make a certain shape of my own. Like Carol is making her own shapes within the grids, within the mathematics. She's making her own designs. And as a creative, that's kind of important to do that, to be satisfied. I'm not big on symmetry. So for me, it's good training, but I much prefer to see, well, what happens if I go out here with something? I don't want to be restricted to having to duplicate something I already did. I don't like, if I get lost, I don't like to turn around and backtrack. I'll take another turn to the right, not knowing where I'm going to end up, and try to wind my way back before I'll turn around in a road and go back the same way I came. It drives me crazy to do that. Just part of my nature. Now, what I didn't get time to do, I did that exercise of, we need this to be a 3-hour session. I took a couple of found compositions from the concertina book that I just made, and I also took a couple of my my pack series paintings, and I reverse engineered them back to see if I could connect the shapes through backwards game playing, like this one, Jill. Not true sacred geometry, but through circles and lines, through points. And I will make a video and I'll post it on the forum before next week, and you can take a look at that.
And did you find that easy?
Um,
I think I would find that incredibly hard.
It was between that. What I did find is that the paintings and the found compositions that I feel are the strongest were much easier to backtrack to sacred geometry than the ones that I thought maybe were done, but weren't necessarily. Those were much harder. And it's like, okay, so that one's not really done yet. And I look back at some of the others when I was picking out which ones I would reverse engineer. And I could see from the very beginning, some that I thought maybe I would rework, but do I want to rework it? And yes, I do want to rework it now, because looking at it through these eyes, it's not playing the music for me. So this is why I'm asking, how can the exploration of this, and in what direction do you want to take it, that might benefit your own work? And I would love if for the year 2025, if each one of us can kind of determine our own unique direction with this in mind, kind of guided by this as a place to go back to analyze what we're doing, both emotionally and physically in the drawings, and not get crazy about it, but just be able to reflect back on it and see, is symmetry important? Is asymmetry important? What I think that it's a roadmap. It's a really strong roadmap to our own way of seeing the world and how we relate to it and how we interpret it. Because, not to make things even more complicated.
Do you want to stop sharing so we don't have to keep looking at my
Oh, yes.
thing?
Jill, I think that you sent me this morning. My brain has been so scrambled this morning. Did you send me the link to the something that talked about the working of the brain
Yeah,
organization?
Jen sent that this morning.
Yes.
Yeah. Um,
And that,
what do you want to know?
well, I'll post the title of it because that also, in doing my research for this, I came across that quite a bit, going way back, way back into the 1500s and 1600s, and the philosophers who were looking at the mathematics of the sky and connecting it with how they perceived our thought process.
Shall I read it? It's quite good,
Yes.
actually.
Okay, yes.
My eldest daughter, who's uh, more than a workaholic, who never stops, okay, sent this on our shared WhatsApp. Research shows being constantly busy has major side effects. It permanently reduces your ability to think. To protect our brains, according to science, it's necessary to balance intense focus with idleness. I like this. However, in our fast-paced world, where every spare moment is filled with checking our phones, this reset is often neglected. This constant stimulation trains our brains to crave busyness, making it harder to disconnect. Neuroscientist Daniel Levitin highlights these concerns in his book, The Organized Mind. He pointed out that information overload keeps us trapped in a cycle of noise, sapping both our willpower and creativity. Levitin explains that to prevent overload, we need to hit the reset button, which means carving space in our day for lying around, meditating, or staring off into nothing. Or I would say, joining the dots or something.
Connecting the dots, or yeah,
You know?
yeah, or neuro art. That's why neuro art is so beneficial.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean it's
With the
so connected.
with the neuro art, there's a whole system that I forget the man's name who developed this. But there's a whole system that they use for like having an intention in particular, and then doing neuro art about that intention. And they say that, like if you want to move in a certain direction in your life, that you do a certain kind of neuro art project. I mean, it's much deeper than just,
Right.
doing the line things. And I think I found neuro art maybe 3 years ago. And and I was really excited about it and very tempted to take the beginner's class on how, on really learning more of the way to do more technical neuro art that has a purpose.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good thing to explore this year coming up.
Would it relate to art therapy type?
Yes,
Uh,
there is a when I was researching it at one point when you reminded me, because a couple years ago I had done that with a penny or pushing a penny around or something.
yes.
And I did find that there's a whole lot if you Google it, on neuro art and art therapy and resolving internal issues and emotional stress and using it as a healing force, another um, method of healing.
Yes, and this
But that's what this
particular,
guy is saying, isn't
yeah,
he?
the particular person that I gave you is like the scientist who developed neuro art. And since then, if you go on YouTube and you just look for neuro art, you're going to get a lot of people that have just like taken little pieces of it and are teaching it as if. So I always look for his name connected to it if I want to know that it's the real deal.
Right.
Do you
Right.
know what his name is?
Uh,
Or,
I
or
can,
can you think and let Chris know?
it's,
Or just post it in the forum.
I'll post it in the forum.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, all of this is to me fascinating and exciting and rewarding. You know, when art can be so frustrating and you can end up in circles of artists who who are um kind of filled with the angst of creating art, you know. And uh I find I find it refreshing to get together and share ideas in a more positive way of looking at what art is for us. You know, not just about making pictures, but what does it really bring into our lives? And what do we bring out into the world through our art? I mean, both of those things are important. You know, what is um, how does the sharing of our own art benefit anything outside of us? And there are many, many ways that it does.
Yes, I had, well, when I used to do the professional craft fairs with clay, I found that well, I was doing the whole theme was about the sea, and everything was in these beautiful pale blues and aquas and pinks that were sandblasted, so they weren't sitting on top of the clay, they became part of the clay. And it was porcelain, and so if you put light on it, you could see through it, you know, see the translucency. They would just light up. And I found that some people would just like walk right by. It's like they didn't have time for it, or, you know, it's like that thing of what draws us and what doesn't. And then other people would like immediately get drawn into it, and they would just, they would look almost like look around. Um, did I lose you guys?
You froze. We hear you. There you are.
Oh,
You're
here I
back.
am. Somebody called me. So I would see that look of wonder
Yeah.
come over their faces. And that was always such a huge thing about going and watching people come in and see my work and just like start to glow themselves, you know.
Right.
And I don't know, that was the magic. It's like the peace that they would experience, and it's like that internal excitement that happens when you see something that's so, you know, it has so many facets to it. Yes, it's beautiful, it's this, it's the, you know, well, it's like there isn't usually one thing that I focus on when I find something that I love.
Yeah. Well, it's an awakening. It's an awakening of feelings, of thoughts, of memories. You know, when something touches us like that, and it could be anything. It could be something in nature we see, or a beautiful piece of artwork, or a beautiful piece of music we hear. You know, that those awakenings are so special and such gifts. Um,
I
by
think
making this thing and putting it out there, you don't even have to be there with it. It will do it on its own.
right. I'm just reflecting in this moment. I was in Brattleboro last week, and I went into the store. I was cutting through the store to get to Main Street, and they had a whole 2 rooms of these rugs from Afghanistan, antique rugs from Afghanistan, and I was looking at all of them. They were like it was like a kid in a candy shop, those kinds of designs. I was just like, wow, and the colors. And then my eye fell on this one rug that was hanging on the wall, and I actually exclaimed out loud because there was something about it that was so magical. And it's an antique rug. It has no backing on it. It's just the threads. And I said I didn't quite understand what I was looking at. And I asked the man about it, and he said, oh, I said, well, I'm worried that it might fade because this rug will be in the sun. And he goes, oh, that can't fade anymore. That's an antique. And it is this amazing, it's just but that sense of seeing something, and everything around me was beautiful. But that one made me just like, wow.
Did you get it?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it. I'm afraid my cats will destroy it.
Oh, you'll have to
Bring it
photograph
on
it
the
to
wall.
share it with us. Yeah.
I have a photograph of it. I'll send it because it
Okay.
is just, for me anyway, it's spectacular. It's not
Wow.
very big either. It's like, I think about 5 by 8 or something.
Well, that's a nice size.
Yeah, no, it is.
Wow. Wow. And aren't you grateful that that artisan created it?
Yes, yes. I mean, amazing. But just that sense of wonder
Mm-hmm.
was
when
gonna
we
say
come
it's
across it.
awe. It's awe, isn't it? Awe and wonder. AWE,
Yeah.
you're describing.
Where an adult can be caught off guard and
Mhm.
discover something new, like when they're a child
Yes.
and they see something for the first time and it, that makes them jump or smile or dance.
Mm.
And yeah, it's a real gift that we have to be artists and to be able to create something that we can put out in the world and have it touch other people, whether we know it or not. That
Yes.
person who made that rug probably doesn't exist anymore. But wow, what power is in that rug. Okay, well, here we are past time again. Do you want to continue on this vein, or I mean, there are just so many other things to jump back to. Any suggestions? What would you like to talk about next week?
What are you doing about Christmas?
Oh.
Christmas break?
Well, you see, I haven't thought very much about it.
Only that people might have commitments. I mean, I think I'm all right. I'm
Yes.
over it soon.
I can't join next week.
Yeah. It's nearly Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe we'll skip next week. Is that Christmas Eve that
No, it's the
No.
23rd.
No,
It's the
it's
23rd.
Tuesday. Tuesday is
Okay.
Tuesday is Christmas Eve. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll have a session anyway, and maybe it will just be a light, fun one of a book that I'll just pick out random and then surprise you. How's that?
And we haven't
Fine.
seen your drawings from this week, Chris. We haven't seen yours.
No, there was so much more that I was wanting to get into, but then I got lost on the when I realized how many books I had going way back, and then I got all excited and I started thinking of the photographs I've taken that I wanted to have inspire some paintings. So I just got I lost track of everything. The houses are rack piles of things everywhere.
This sounds very familiar. That's
Yeah.
what my week was like.
So it's going to be something, I'm not quite sure what I'll present, but I'll present something, and we won't have heavy duty discussions, I don't think, so it'll be easy for you to catch up, Suzanne.
Mhm.
Okay, we're just going to be silly next week, maybe.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, great. So I'll try to get more things posted. I may be posting a couple of videos in connection with this that I don't want to spend a whole session on, but I want you to have as backup reference for at least where this scrambled brain has been going this week. And like I said, I wanted to include this with all those different shapes so that you could refer back to it. You can just go back to the video and see. And we're still just working with two-dimensional shapes. Oh, I mean, I did present 3, but that's for now.
That didn't escape our attention.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And happy sketching,
Mm.
whatever you do or whatever you don't
Yes.
do.
And Suzanne, happy Christmas. If you-
Yes.
Yes, happy Christmas to all of you too. Huh?
Okay. Yes.
And see you soon. Huh?
Okay.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.